Hey guys, it's me Seren back with another video. This video is going to be about colorism, more or less. Somebody has sent me a request on Tumblr. I'm going to read it to you. Anyways, I was wondering, could you please make a video discussing how black girls are seen as less feminine than white girls? When people hear words like classical, elegant, and so on, they don't think black. I'm curious to hear your, and like black was in quotation marks. I'm curious to hear your opinion because I don't know why this stereotype exists about black women, and they put a face like a face. Thanks. Well, the reason why black girls are seen as less feminine than white girls, and words like classical, elegant, and so on are typically not used to describe black girls is because of colorism, of racism, and it goes back to slavery, and it goes back to colonization, just like everything else. When, the lighter-skinned slaves were the house niggas, and the darker-skinned slaves were the field niggas. We have centuries and centuries, literally centuries, of conditioning telling us that lighter skin, and of course, closer to whiteness, is more beautiful, is more elegant, as this person said, classical. This person's Tumblr name is AcrossTheUniverse, which clearly is a Beatles reference. So if you want to go check them out, feel free. But yeah, going back to the days of colonization, and not just, this is just for black people. I'm going to get into this a little bit later in the video, but colonization is something that happened on a global scale, across the world. And colorism is something that a lot of different cultures and races have to deal with. The concept of darker skin being less than, being ugly, being less classically beautiful, to steal the words of the fucking New York Times bitch talking about Viola Davis. And I have a video about that, which I will link in the description box. Viola Davis said, I've been told my whole life that I'm not classically beautiful, that I'm not elegant, that I'm not this, that I'm not that, because I'm a dark-skinned woman. And it's colorism, and it like I said, in the United States and in our culture, American culture, it goes back to slavery and the concepts of, the closer to white you are, the better you are. White is right. The closer to blackness you are, the darker you are, the uglier you are, the less self-worth you have. Light skin, pretty eyes, good hair. You was in the house, you were seen as being worthy to be seen by massa and to be with massa's family and to be with massa's guests. And darker skin, you was out in the field, you was a nigga, and this is something that we still have ingrained within us today. To this day, we still have these concepts. And also within this Eurocentric standard of beauty and this white gaze, we've also internalized these ideas that darker skin is more masculine and that lighter skin is more feminine. And this is across the board. This is in both men and women. A lot of times within the black community, you'll see light-skinned boys described as pretty boys. They're more emotional. They're more effeminate. You have all these feminine terms used to describe light-skinned boys because light skin is seen as a feminine trait, as a more beautiful trait. Meanwhile, dark skin has become associated with masculinity. And so a lot of times when you have darker skinned girls, they're associated with being more masculine or being ugly. And it's colorism. It's colorism, plain and simple. And a lot of times, like I said, you have light-skinned boys that are seen as soft. They're not hard. They're not real men. All because of the color of their skin. And it's really ridiculous because it's like, skin does not carry any type of inherently feminine or masculine traits. It's just skin, A lot of us, the majority of us, we get lighter in the winter and darker in the summer because of the sun. Are we getting more feminine during the winter and more masculine during the summer? No, it's ridiculous, right? It's absurd, but that's one of the effects of colonization. You know, it's brainwashing to get you to believe in something that is, you know, illogical and it's ridiculous. You can type black skin is more into Google and you will get all types of black skin is more masculine. Black skin creates more testosterone, you know, all these fake ass studies linking melanin production to testosterone production, you know, shit that's like borderline eugenics, like walking that line, you know, like of some Nazi Germany type shit. And that's what it boils down to. Darker skin being seen as ugly, as less classically beautiful, and lighter skin and whiter skin, and the closer you are to white, as being seen as more classically beautiful and elegant within a Eurocentric standard of beauty and within the white gaze. And as I said in my Azealia Banks video, a lot of the times the insults or the criticism that people make of Azealia Banks won't even have anything to do with her argument or what she's saying. It will revolve around dark skin, black bitch, which has nothing to do with anything she said, you know? It's all about pointing out that she's dark skinned and how that somehow makes her ugly. You know, because we inherently have this link inside of us that links dark skin, nappy hair, natural hair, to ugliness, and lighter skin, lighter eyes, a more straighter or looser, you know, hair texture and curl pattern to beauty. And as I was saying earlier in my video, this is not just black people. This is something that affects, you know, pretty much all people of color across the world, and especially people of color that have been colonized and by Europeans. I got into this conversation with this guy, this Dominican guy, I have it up here, that got extremely offended by me talking about colorism. We were having this conversation under this video of this Hispanic guy. I guess he's also Dominican, and he was talking about, you know, bad hair, pelo malo, and naps and stuff like that. And I left a comment saying that a lot of Hispanics and Latinos, because that's an ethnicity, not a race, suffer from colorism. This Dominican guy got extremely offended. He goes, "We don't suffer from colorism. That is not a thing in our culture. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And you just running off at the mouth." Like, he got very upset, very offended. I'm like, listen, colorism is a thing. Like, it's a thing. And he's like, colorism, my ass. Just because some people have skin preferences doesn't make it colorism. I said, that's not true. Having skin preferences is colorism. Skin preferences don't exist within a vacuum. And I feel like this is something I say so often in my videos. People love to throw out these facts and say things, but they don't have any knowledge of what came before that. You get what I'm saying? Like, they feel like everything exists within a vacuum. There's no past. There's no history. These things just popped into being like spontaneous combustion, okay? Like, just because some people have skin preferences doesn't make it colorism. Yes, it does. You know, like, for you to say, I only date light-skinned girls with good hair and pretty eyes, aka green eyes or blue eyes or gray eyes, or again, something that is historically associated with whiteness. Not to say that there are black people that don't naturally have that type of eye color, skin color, hair color, whatever, because of course there's all types of variations. But speaking within the realm of colorism, we're talking about features that people historically associate with white people, and seeking those specific things out. Again, borderline eugenics, trying to, you know, get away from blackness and get away from ethnicity. You can't just say, oh, I just want to date somebody that's light-skinned with pretty eyes and good hair. That didn't exist within a vacuum. You weren't born with that thought in your mind. Those skin preferences, those eye color preferences, those hair color preferences, the notion that darker skin is not classically beautiful, the notion that darker skin is more masculine and lighter skin is more feminine, all those things came from somewhere. They don't exist within a vacuum. They came from conditioning. They came from hundreds of years, centuries and centuries of internalized racism and colorism. And it's just crazy to me that you have people that will really, like, want to argue with you when they don't know that, like, but they don't have any type of understanding of the history of what they're talking about. They really believe that these things just magically happen. Like, oh, I just magically prefer light skin. No, you don't. You don't just magically prefer light skin. You know? And then he's like, having skin that you like is not colorism. There are people who only like dark skin. Is that colorism? No. I said the reasoning behind, that's what he said to me. I replied, the reasoning behind most skin preferences is colorism. Are there people that, you know, they're just going to date whoever they want interracially or whatever? Yes, of course. And I feel like I say this every time I talk about this. Of course, there are people that fall in love regardless of skin color, and that's awesome and that's great. But just because that happens does not discount the number of people that say, oh, sure, I'll only date a dark-skinned girl if she has good hair or nice hair or long hair. Or, no, I don't date dark-skinned girls. I only date light-skinned girls with pretty eyes. Like, that is a thing. And people try to act like it's not, you know? And it's weird. I have an ask right here. Why are black girls seen as less feminine than white girls? You know? I've said plenty of times in my Zelia Banks video, people come for her not because of her facial features, not because of things that she says, but because she has dark skin. It's colorism, you know? And then I was like, I said, you know, the reason behind most skin preferences is colorism. It doesn't exist within a vacuum. And he replied, well, if you want to call it that, if you want to call that, he's like, he seems like he's very angry, like slamming the keyboard because like there's mad shit here that's not making sense. If you want to call it that, if you want to call that colorism, then the whole world is colorism struck. I guess color struck. Since you find that in every color and since you find that in every culture. And I said, yes, the whole world is struck by colorism. That's what it is. It's not what I want to call it. It's colorism. Across every culture, people who are darker suffer most. Why? I said, Google that quote. Colorism and racism is a disease that affects the world, especially, you know, cultures that have been colonized by Europeans, just all across the world. And you have people that want to argue about that and deny that and make it about my preferences, my preference. Just examine where your preferences come from. And I know that's hard, just like I said in my video on internalization and racism and things like that, because we live in a racist society. We live in a racist society that tells us from the time that we're small all types of things that we internalize. Don't go out in the sun, you're going to get too dark. Oh my God, when are you going to do something with your hair? Comb your hair looks nappy, nigga naps, bad hair, good hair, pretty eyes, light skin. Just like I said, you know, light skinned boys are pretty boys and dark skinned boys are seen as more masculine. And this is all stuff that we internalize from before we even know, from before we can even talk. You know, like I said in my video about hair, I was a little kid with a huge ass afro that everybody used to be like to my mom, when are you going to do something with that girl's hair? You know? I mean, and I thank my mom because I never had an issue, luckily, clearly. I never had an issue with skin color because my mom, every summer, my mom would be like, we need to go to the beach. We need to go to the pool. We need to lay out. We need to get a tan, honey. We need to get darker. So I grew up very much like, bitch, I'm pale as fuck. Like, I need to go get me a tan, bitch. Like, I went to Cancun. I was loving it. I was like, look at this. Get into this tan, honey. Get into this tan, bitch. Get into this golden bronzy glow, bitch. Like, and I also came up in the early 2000s when everybody was all about, like, the bronzer and the golden bronzy, you know. So it's just like, because it's something that you have to internalize and that you have to learn for yourself and unlearn as you get older, you know. But across the universe, I hope that answered your question. Black girls are seen as less feminine as white girls because we're not white. And whiteness and light skin, you know, holdovers from slavery and colonization and colonized minds and internalized racism teaches us that white is right and white is beautiful and black is not. But at the end of the day, they just mad because my melanin pops severely and theirs don't. Peace.